do try to keep as removed from it as possible. I really do not like Hollywood. The business really scares me.
Talented actor you know best is Peter Parker.
Please welcome Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
I've definitely walked away from a lot, and I think had I not walked away from certain situations, I would be a very different person today. Eventually, you get to that point where you sort of hit a wall.
You've done 4 performances so far. You're about to start. Tom, how's it going?
Oh yeah, it's going fantastic, yeah. I'm loving it.
Have you always wanted to do something like this?
I think dancing came from my mum. Not that my mum can dance, that she sent me to a dance school when I was a kid.
My mum would take me to a dance class every Saturday.
I just used to really enjoy it. I really, really enjoyed it. I never saw that it would take me into this industry. I've been very lucky that it has.
I worked really hard at school. I didn't do particularly well. I went to a rugby school, so you can imagine like the one kid in the school that does ballet. There's going to be comments here and there. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world. My mum has always been really hands-on with our education. You know, really wanted us to just do our best. Our dad always said, like, look, I don't care what grades you get. As long as you try your best, you try your best. And that's all that we can ask for.
My eldest son is 3. And unfortunately, he suffers from a medical condition whereby he's up a lot.
Because our dad's a comedian, his job only ever existed once we had gone to bed. And our mum worked from home. She was a photographer. So to us as kids, our parents didn't really work. They just were always home. So we had this amazing foundation where no matter any time of the day, either mum or dad would be at the house. And we felt so kind of solid as a family. I owe a lot to my dad, and a lot of the teachings are things he's told me and things I've just witnessed him do.
Yeah.
Being a young kid and seeing your dad continually working as hard as he can to kind of put his best foot forward, for me, has been a huge drive for my work ethic. I'll give it 100% or I'll give it nothing. And I think a lot of that has come from my dad.
I'm Tom Holland and I play Billy in Billy Elliot the Musical.
My first show in Billy was when I was 11.
I started acting when I did a show in the West End called Billy Elliot. The only reason I did Billy Elliot is because I loved to dance, and I went to this tiny little dance school every Saturday called Nifty Feet. I got spotted through that dance class to audition for a show on the West End.
It goes through a long audition process. It took me about 2.5 years to actually get onto the stage. And I was like, oh, fair dues. So I'll go for it.
I got asked to audition for Billy Elliot. Any young kid would jump at that opportunity. I just fell in love with performing. I just fell in love with the art of being on stage. I feel like I can be myself when I'm on stage.
You have moments where like you just look out at the audience and you're like, whoa.
There were kids that didn't understand why I was doing it or what I was doing it for.
I can't really explain it. I haven't got the words.
It was such a cool experience.
My dad would run through lines with me and just work on timing. Comedy is all about timing. So my dad was the perfect teacher for that.
The show was so labor intensive, it was very dangerous, there's lots of moving parts, there's lots of acrobatics. It wasn't too uncommon for a Billy to get injured.
They really gave us the best training they could possibly have given us.
Because you're doing flips and dangerous stuff, it just feels so much more like, oh wow.
Working on Billy Elliot from such a young age was so valuable to me.
My name's Tom Holland. I go to a school in Kingston and I'm an actor. I've worked in Billy Elliot in the West End and I made a movie called The Impossible with Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts.
This was never something I wanted. I just was a young kid. I loved dancing. Just by complete fluke, an agent came to see the show the night that I was on. She signed me. She sent me to an audition for a film. I was lucky enough to get the part. All of a sudden, I was on set with Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts, and we made The Impossible. And I was introduced to this magical world of film.
Working on stage and on film is so different. You have to tone everything down and everything has to be as natural as possible. It was one of those things where the acting wasn't really required because at times I was genuinely scared because of the surroundings.
Ben Perkins was my acting coach on my first film, and that film's really, really emotionally intense.
I was having to find emotions that I'd never really been there before. I mean, like the idea of losing your mother, losing your brothers and stuff like that.
And I would cry instantly. So he devised these exercises where him and I could kind of have these fake arguments, and I would allow the emotion to kind of come from these kind of acting techniques, let's call it.
The thing that's so amazing about Naomi is how generous she is with her work and what she does to help you while you're on set. She was my mum in the film and she may as well have been my mum off set as well. We got on really well.
Did you have any idea that he was going to be one of the biggest stars on the planet?
I mean, I knew he had a future.
There's no point being nervous about something. You've got to turn it into excitement.
He was a brilliant actor. He came with great discipline and focus.
The most important thing for me is to remain grounded. So when I see myself in 10 years' time, I see the same person.
He also has a really great, beautiful family who keep him grounded.
And the winner is Tom Holland for The Impossible.
I've won Best Male Newcomer for The Impossible.
I'm just really delighted that my work has been recognised and that I can say thank you to the people that have brought me here today. I've just started a new school. I started at the Brit School in London, which I'm really enjoying.
Well, when I first came here, I was just starting a world tour on this movie that I'd released, and I was very nervous. I was very kind of unsure on what that would be like. I joined the Brit School because, you know, my mum was keen that I didn't go for school for an education, but went to school to expand my social skills and meet kids my own age. All my friends when I was 15 were like 30-year-old people. So I think my mum was keen that I had some friends that are my age who are now my best friends today.
I didn't ever go to my drama school. My attendance was like 2%.
I had that moment where I was like, what do I want to do? I could try and stay at school and figure out what I want to do, or this thing that's been a hobby, but my sort of summer holiday activity, which is acting, I could try and do that for a living. And I've been so lucky that I've been offered jobs and all that sort of stuff.
I fancy being like a superhero.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. What kind of superhero would I want to play? Maybe Spider-Man in like 10 years' time. When I found out that they were recasting it, I phoned my agent and I said, listen, I probably don't stand a chance, but I would just please get me to do a self-tape.
I guess when you can do what I can do, maybe you have a responsibility to do some good with it.
It was a pretty daunting process. I went through a phase of just doing self-tapes after self-tapes after self-tapes.
Okay then.
And I basically did like a somersault into frame and then a somersault out of frame. Because I was like, they may never see this, but if they do, I need them to know that I've got some gymnastics abilities and stuff. I actually auditioned for Spider-Man all over the world. I auditioned for Spider-Man in Ireland, in Canada, in Atlanta, in LA.
For a young man walking into a room with Robert Downey and into a room with Chris Evans, that's got to be terrifying as an actor. Like, you're walking in with probably your childhood idols.
Wait! Whoa, that thing does not obey the laws of physics.
My agents have told me that Marvel like you to learn the words exactly. You can't improvise, you can't do any of that. And then on the first take, Downey just completely changed the scene.
Robert is the king of improvising.
When we were doing Civil War, right at the beginning of that, they were casting, and so they brought in all the finalists for the exam.
I basically had been auditioning for about 5 months. After my final audition, they said, you'll find out tomorrow. Fast forward 6 weeks, I was still waiting. And one day, Marvel just posted on their Instagram, go to our website to find out who the new Spider-Man is. My brother Harry, who's pretty savvy with technology and stuff, was like, dude, they've probably been hacked. Kevin Feige finally rang me and said, I've got some great news. You're going to be Spider-Man. My first day as Peter Parker was on Civil War, and it was with Robert, where I get knocked out by Giant Man.
You're the Spiderling, crime-fighting spider. You're Spider-Boy?
Civil War was such a rushed movie for me, because I literally was cast, came in, did 2 weeks, and then left. It didn't really feel like I had the chance to actually make a movie. Mr. Stark, wait! I'm not done, just me and a load of tennis balls. I didn't get to meet anyone apart from Chris Evans. I wasn't nervous when the film was coming out because I didn't really know what to expect. I knew when we were shooting the movie that we were doing something special and something new, and I knew that people would like it. I just didn't know that they would love it. When that movie came out, it was the first indicator as to, wow, this is really, this is the real deal. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for a better way to be introduced, and the Russo brothers did it so perfectly.
Hey, May. How you doing? What are you wearing? Something skimpy, I hope.
We've seen so many different types of superhero movies, but never one like this. Billionaires, the god, the scientist, the soldier. We've never really seen what would happen if a kid got those sort of superpowers. If you gave a 15-year-old superpowers, they would have the time of their life. It's every kid's dream to be a superhero. I was always a comic fan. Like, I loved all the superheroes. I loved the TV shows. I think that's why I loved Spider-Man so much growing up, is that I could relate to him on a personal level. There was a joke. I suggested to Marvel that I should go to a high school undercover. It was completely a joke, and Marvel took it completely seriously. The next thing I know, I was like, had a backpack with a pencil case on my way to Bronx School of Science. I went to school with a fake name and a fake accent. This is the first superhero movie to take place entirely in high school. They have this kind of really happy-go-lucky teenage, coming-of-age high school movie vibe, which I've never really seen before in a superhero film. I'm gonna die. As an actor,
You use expression with your face to convey emotion. And when you take that away, you have to figure out how to do it with your physicality. As soon as they take away your face, all of a sudden you're like powerless. The way I look at a script is I look at it as like a blueprint of what the director wants, and I will give him that, but I will try and find my own version of it. Making Spider-Man was a really, collaborative experience.
If you even cared, you'd actually be here.
Mr. Holland, anyone who experienced him, he's not a work in progress. I mean, he's really something else.
He's the man. He's like the nicest guy. He's so hardworking. He's just brilliant. He came to set and brought Tony Stark to life.
I think he really came on with a bang, and there's a lot of excitement about seeing what'll happen when he kind of holds his own.
We had a lot of fun on set together. He's somewhat of a nightmare to work with because if you come up with something really funny to say as an ad-lib, he will always out-funny you. He is number one. He is the leader of the MCU.
I am Iron Man.
I like this Tom Holland guy.
I even wore glasses to try. Look at you. This is very RDJ, right?
It's very good. You really are taking cues from the master now.
Well, me and Downey isn't really a bromance. It's like a father-son mance.
Personally, yet to see it. When can I?
You will see it when I'm ready for you to see it.
Another big part of becoming Spider-Man and taking on a role as big as this one is fate.
Spider-Man Homecoming was a movie that was coming right off of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was not well received, ladies and gentlemen. And it still came out, made $880 million.
I think the big change is in July. When that movie comes out, it's really going to be a big old difference.
Everywhere I go, I see his face. And the whole world is asking who's going to be the next Iron Man.
Far From Home brought in a whopping $1.1 billion worldwide at the box office.
I love you guys.
Spider-Man No Way Home has now achieved a milestone by becoming the first movie to hit $1 billion in the COVID pandemic era.
I would assume that you probably felt pressure being the next Spider-Man.
As a celebrity, you live on this stage, you live out there, you kind of give out a version of yourself that you want people to see, and that can be the version of yourself that they can have a problem with or they can love. I really am a massive fan of making movies, but I really do not like Hollywood. It is not for me. The business really scares me. I am always looking for ways to kind of remove myself from it, to kind of just live as normal a life as possible. You'll never see me at an award show I don't have to be at. I'm never going to a red carpet event that I'm not in the film of, I don't want the attention when I don't need it. Don't lose yourself. I've seen so many people come before me and lose themselves, and I've had friends that I've grown up with that aren't friends of mine anymore because they've lost themselves to this business. I've been really good at keeping in touch with my friends, keeping my family close, listening to the lessons, not getting caught up in the Hollywood hype.
One of the things that you mentioned recently was that you gave up drinking about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And you said it was the hardest thing you ever did.
I would go to events for work and I can't enjoy myself until I've had a few beers, and I just felt so much pressure. I would drink and drink and drink and drink, and then you would just reach that moment where you're like, wow, I shouldn't have had that last beer. And I just sort of said to myself, like, why am I enslaved to this drink? Why am I so obsessed by the idea of having this drink? Yeah. I was definitely addicted to alcohol. I decided to just give up for January. I just wanted to do dry January. I just, like many Brits, had a very, very boozy December. All I could think about was having a drink. All I could think about. I was waking up thinking about it. I was checking the clock, when's it 12? And it just really scared me. I just was like, wow, maybe I have a little bit of an alcohol thing. So I sort of decided to punish myself and say, I'll do February as well. I'll do 2 months off. 2 months go by and I was still really struggling. I felt like I couldn't be social. I felt like I couldn't go to the pub and have a lime soda. I couldn't go out for dinner. I was really, really struggling. So I decided that I would wait until my birthday, which is June 1st. I said to myself, if I can do 6 months without alcohol, then I can prove to myself that I don't have a problem. By the time I had got to June 1st, I was the happiest I've ever been in my life. I could sleep better. I could handle problems better. I had so much better mental clarity. I felt healthier. I felt fitter. I'm over the moon to be sober. I love it. A year and a half into it now. It doesn't even cross my mind.
Before filming, you had mentioned that playing Danny Sullivan was probably going to be the most complicated thing you were ever going to try and tackle on screen.
I really feel like I'm starting kind of the next chapter. The Crowded Room kind of feels like the perfect launching pad for me to do that. I was coming into this with no knowledge of really how powerful the human mind can be and the crazy things that we can do to protect ourselves for better or for worse. I like being in situations where I feel uneasy. I feel like I thrive under pressure. I hope the fans are somewhat shocked by my portrayal of this character.
character. It's definitely a huge departure from who I am as a person.
Did anything scare you about taking on the role?
I'm normally very good at leaving my work at work and being myself at home, but this is the first time in life where it's kind of bled into one.
Crowded Room was the hardest job I've ever had for all sorts of different reasons, and there was a point in time where we were talking about, do we shut this down and walk away from it because of how challenging it was.
Getting into those emotions on a daily basis, the workload, the time it took to make the show, producing the show, shooting in New York, dealing with the issues that come with that. It was tough. It was really tough.
I decided to delete my Instagram because I just felt like I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life. I'm taking a break from social media because I feel like my mental health will benefit from it. And the thing that really upset me is the press ran with that. They tried to make out that I was having this mental breakdown. What upset me was, if I was having a mental breakdown, that's not for you to report on. They took the story in the wrong direction. They painted, again, this negative light on mental health. He's not the perfect, happy-go-lucky kid you think he is. He's having a nervous breakdown in New York.
Standing up and asking for help is not something you should be ashamed of. Asking for help should be something that we as a society celebrate. The most important lesson I've learned is from Robert Downey Jr. He is someone that leads by example.
It kind of gave me a great drive to finish The Crowded Room. If you're not going to listen to my personal message, then you have to listen to the message of my show. You just dig your heels in, you realize you've got a job to do. We're all wonderfully well paid. There are people that work far harder for far less. I recognize how lucky I am. So I'm like, if I need to cry today and tomorrow and the next 50 days in a row, I'll do so. It's a shame that this year off has come after this incredibly hard job, and that they kind of ran with this idea that yes, the show did break me, and yes, it was difficult, but I could have gone back to work.
The wildest rumor that I've ever heard about myself is recently that I decided to become sober after having a meltdown on set, which is wildly untrue. I decided to give up drinking long before I stepped onto set at The Crowded Room.
I was always planning on taking this break after this job. I'm lucky that I'm in a stage in my career that when I ask for help, I get it. I've been doing this since I was 11 on the stage in London, and I haven't had a break since. I've been flat out. Going back to work is something that isn't really on my radar yet.
One of the best things about playing Spider-Man is getting to work with Zendaya.
My relationship is the thing that I keep most sacred. I don't talk about it. I try my best to keep it as private as possible. We both feel very strongly that that is the healthiest way for us to move on as a couple.
I need you to fall in love with me, really, for it to work. So, long game, probably making a movie with each other. It definitely helps when the characters you're playing are falling in love with one another. You can sort of blur the lines a little bit.
She's wonderful to work with. She's arguably the most talented person I've ever met. She's amazing.
Zendaya's probably the most honest with me.
I think she recognizes how much she's helped me